Welcome to Velvet Hour. You've arrived at the quiet part of the day, where time begins to slow, and the world softens around the edges. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight's story is meant to guide you gently away from the weight of the day, and into a space made for rest. A space just for you, where sound is soft, and stillness is allowed to stretch. Thank you for choosing to spend these next moments with us. It's a privilege to walk you into rest. So now, take a deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let the light dim behind your eyes. And if your mind is still racing a little, that's alright. You don't have to force the quiet. It's already here. Just beneath the surface, waiting. Tonight's story will take us far from the noise, into a warm desert, just as the sun begins to melt behind the hills. The air is dry, but gentle. There's a scent on the breeze, something deep and earthy, like crushed citrus peels, cool stone, and vetiver roots pulling ancient water from the sand. And somewhere nearby, a man walks. He doesn't hurry, because there's no need to. This is not a journey of distance. It's a soft ritual. A quiet conversation with the land, the scent, the sun. Let's follow him, slowly, and see where this velvet hour leads. The sun had just begun to lower itself behind the rocky ridges. Not suddenly, but in a way that felt deliberate, like the last act of a ritual performed every evening, just for those who were paying attention. The sky turned from bright ochre to copper, then to the soft violet blush that comes just before the first stars appear. A man stood by a low stone wall, the kind built not for fortification, but for memory. His hand rested lightly on the sun-warmed rock, fingers feeling the texture of sand-flecked stones still holding the day's heat. He wore simple clothes, loose cotton, worn leather sandals, a linen scarf gathered at the neck. The wind moved gently through the folds of his clothing, rustling it like leaves not in a hurry to fall. Around him, the world was hushed, not silent, but listening. Cicadas hummed in the brush nearby, not frantically, but rhythmically, as if they too knew this hour asked for softness. He began to walk. The path was dusty and uneven, cracked in places where roots had pushed the earth up over time. But he knew the way. He had walked this path for years, sometimes alone, sometimes in quiet company. Tonight, he walked not to reach a destination, but to remember how stillness moves. With each step, a soft puff of dust rose beneath his sandals, carried briefly by the breeze, then forgotten. He inhaled, deeply. The scent was there again, sharp at first, like bitter orange peel crushed between fingers, followed by something slower, earthier. Vetiver. Dry grass and river stone, wood and memory. It grounded him, brought him fully into his body, into this exact moment, here in the fading warmth of desert evening. He didn't smile, not because he wasn't happy, but because happiness here didn't need expression. It was simply felt. Like heat soaking through stone, or wind brushing past skin. No one watched him. No one needed to. The desert was company enough. The path curved gently to the right, skirting the edge of a sloping hill where olive trees had anchored themselves in rocky soil for centuries. Their trunks were twisted and hollow in places, not from decay, but from age, worn into character by sun and time. He paused beside the nearest one. Its bark was coarse beneath his hand, like linen pressed against skin. The leaves above shimmered slightly in the fading light, pale green on one side, silver on the other, fluttering in quiet conversation with the breeze. He didn't speak, but he listened. There was something sacred in this part of the trail. Not religious, just old. A kind of stillness that settled in the bones, like the echo of an old voice that didn't need to be remembered to be felt. To his left, the low wall reappeared, this time taller, overgrown in places with moss and dry brush. He ran his fingers across the top stones as he walked, feeling where they'd been chipped, where time had worn them smooth. Some of these stones had likely been placed by hand generations ago, passed down not by blood, but by footsteps. Near a bend in the wall, he saw a small patch of thyme growing between the cracks, wild and stubborn. He bent down, pinched a sprig gently between his thumb and finger, and brought it to his nose. The scent was sharp, green and almost peppery. It mixed in the air with the lingering vetiver and citrus from earlier, creating a bouquet of dry earth, crushed leaves, and memory. Nothing sweet. Just clean. Real. Somewhere beyond the hill, a dog barked once, not urgent. Just a reminder that life still moved in slow circles out here. He smiled, barely. A single cloud passed over the sun, softening the colors for a moment. And as it did, the stones underfoot seemed to darken slightly, like the desert itself exhaled. The man moved on, past the thyme, past the old wall, toward a stretch of open sand, where the horizon spread wide like an invitation. The path opened at last onto a wide plateau. A stretch of golden earth laid bare to the sky. No trees here, just scrub and rock, and the distant bones of the hills sloping down toward the horizon. The air shifted. Not sharply, but with purpose. A wind rose up from the south, the kind that moves across miles without needing permission, carrying with it the dry scent of cracked cedar, sun-baked minerals, and something faintly smoky. The man stepped forward slowly, letting the breeze wrap itself around him. His scarf fluttered loose at the collar, lifting slightly with each gust. He closed his eyes, and for a while, he simply breathed. The sound of the wind brushing past his ears was softer than it should have been, like someone whispering from a room away. The warmth of the day still lingered in the dust beneath his feet, but the sun's grip had softened, now more of a memory than a force. Above him, the sky shifted toward deep gold and lavender, with the first star barely blinking through. He felt small, but not in the way that makes a person shrink. In the way that reminds you, nothing needs to be done. The world will continue without effort. The wind will keep moving, the stars will rise. All you need to do is be here. He sat down slowly on a smooth rock, legs stretched out, hands resting palm up on his thighs. The wind passed over him like a shawl. Not cold, just present. His breath fell into rhythm with the world, not controlled, not forced. Simply joined. There was nothing to listen for, but everything to hear. The hush of stone cooling for the night. The invisible sway of brush and dust. The faint hiss of his own exhale. He stayed like that, still and slow, as the desert exhaled around him. Vetiver, earth, skin, wind, all of it part of him now. The sky was darker now. Not fully night, but no longer day. That in-between hour, when the edges of things blur, shapes soften, shadows stretch, and the world forgets whether it should speak or stay silent. The man remained seated on the rock, legs stretched long, back slightly curved, eyes unfocused. He had nowhere to be. The wind had slowed, its earlier restlessness now softened into small, measured sighs, like a sleeping creature whose dreams were steady. The scent in the air lingered. That quiet strength of vetiver, grounding him, reminding him of warmth, of dry leaves crushed underfoot, of old paper and clean sweat. And then, there was the voice. Not loud, not sudden, just there, as if it had always been there, waiting for the silence to grow deep enough. A woman's voice, low and warm, like river stones smoothed over time. "Do you still walk this path?" He did not startle. He simply let the words wash over him. The voice was familiar, not present, but not gone either. Memory, maybe, or a dream retold by the wind. "The time still grows by the bend," he whispered, almost without realizing. There was no reply, but the air around him seemed to listen. He remembered her hands, always cool, always certain, gathering herbs in the low light of early evening. She used to hum as she worked, soft and tuneless, the melody shifting with her breath. He had forgotten the sound until just now, and now it returned. Threaded through the wind, woven into the rhythm of the dark. "The earth keeps things," the voice said again, gently. "Even when we let them go." His throat tightened, but not from sadness, from recognition. He didn't speak again. He only listened. As the stars brightened above him, and the desert laid its blanket of stillness across the land. The last of the sunlight had bled away. What remained was the afterglow, not in the sky, but in the way the earth still held the memory of light, as if reluctant to let go. The man rose from the stone, slow and unhurried, brushing the dust from his palms, though no one was watching. He took a step forward, then another. The ground felt different now, cooler beneath his soles, the dust a little softer, like flour left to settle in the bowl. Above him, the stars had multiplied, scattered like grains of salt across indigo velvet. No moon yet, just starlight, and the faint glow of a single lantern far in the distance. His feet knew where to go. The path had no markings, no signs, but it curved gently, obedient to the land's old logic. A dry branch cracked gently underfoot, not loud enough to startle, just present. In the dark, the desert became more itself. The brush moved in small shivers, the stones cooled and quieted, and the wind, once loose and playful, now flowed lower, hugging the terrain, close to the ground. The scent of vetiver had softened, no longer bold, now just the echo of earth, of quiet masculinity, of ritual. Each breath he took felt longer, deeper, as if the night asked him to breathe not just with his body, but with his whole self. The world around him had ceased to narrate. It did not ask questions, did not offer memory, did not pull him forward. It simply was. And he simply was within it. He paused again, not because he needed to, but because he could. And in the long stretch of silence between each footstep, something inside him quieted too. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask to be noticed, but once it's felt, becomes impossible to forget. The man turned slowly from the plateau, tracing the path he had come by, though now it was only loosely remembered in the dark. He didn't need to see. His feet remembered the stones, the way they rose slightly at the bend, the way the thyme grew thickest near the roots of the second olive tree. The stars above had grown brighter, more confident now, casting a pale silver light on the dust below. He walked slowly, without purpose, but with rhythm, one step, and then another. Like breathing. The wind had calmed to a hush. No longer moving through the trees, it settled low along the earth, carrying the scent of stone, of sun-warmed roots, of endings. As he neared the edge of the hill, the outline of his home came into view, just a low structure built of earth and clay. Quiet and waiting. No light burned in the window, but the doorway was open, as if the evening itself had invited him back in. He crossed the threshold. Inside, the air was still. Not stale, but preserved, cool from thick walls, touched faintly by the scent of dry herbs hung above the lintel. A small cot sat along the far wall, covered with simple linen, its folds already shaped by the memory of sleep. A clay cup rested on the windowsill, catching the last breath of starlight. He did not speak. He did not light a lamp. He simply removed his sandals, loosened the scarf at his neck, and sat at the edge of the bed. Outside, the desert continued, unchanged, unconcerned. He lay back slowly, folding into the quiet, the rhythm of breath, the cool of linen, the scent of vetiver still clinging faintly to his skin. He closed his eyes. There was no sound now, but the memory of the wind. And in that stillness, there was peace. The kind of peace that asks for nothing, and gives everything. The kind of peace that only comes at the end of a long, slow walk home.